All right, we're bringing you a CNN World exclusive. In her first such detailed conversation since leaving Dhaka, former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has offered a searing account of the events that led to her ouster and the rise of Muhammad Yunus. Speaking exclusively with CNN News 18's Manoj Gupta, Hasina has described an orchestrated coup, that's what she's saying, masked as reform, implicating radical factions and warning of a growing extremist influence under the current Yunus regime. She defends her record, denies Western involvement in her ouster, and expresses gratitude towards India for sanctuary and patience. In the wide-ranging interview, Hasina reflects on the army's dilemma as well, the questions that they were faced with, foreign pressures, and her determination to restore democratic rule in Bangladesh. Lots was covered in this particular interview. She's spoken about the Yunus regime as well, implicating certain extremist factions which she claims are at play in Bangladesh. She said that the once peaceful protest had transformed into a state of lawlessness led by a violent mob of radical agitators. This was a far cry from the initial student protests over civil service job quotas, which is how this all started, and that was the initial request as well. Now, for more on this, we have with us Anand Narasimhan as well, who's joining us live. Thank you so much for joining us, Anand. Let me just come across to you. Big claims by Sheikh Hasina here, and she's also mentioned the role of India, saying that India stood by me with patience. Now, what do you think that reveals about India's strategic restraint and wisdom?
Morning, Him, and morning to our viewers. First up, commendations and kudos to Manoj Kumar Gupta for getting us the first ever interview. It's a written interview. It's a text interview. The full details are out on news18.com. We urge our viewers to kindly peruse and go through it. Even as we break down, there are a series of 10 questions that have been answered, starting with what happened and did she even have an inkling that there is going to be an overthrow of a democratically elected government and she is going to be unseated and she would have to flee the country. So she starts from there, and then the conversation flows. The role of the army chief, Waqaruzzaman, and who's the one who's operating in the shadows? Is Yunus just a front? And did he fool certain entities in the West with his economist front? And now is that entire mask coming off? She does absolve governments, especially the US governments, of any unprecedented work or activity. But she does very clearly then turn around and say that perhaps those who supported Yunus and backed him have now realized that he's not the person he claimed to be. She's also named the Hizb ut-Tahrir as the one at the shadows, the radical outfit, which is currently running the government with Yunus as the front. What she has urged, she has very clearly urged, is for democracy to be returned to Bangladesh, for the people of Bangladesh to be given a free and fair chance to elect their leader. She has not ruled out the possibility of her going back to Bangladesh, but what she has said is the power has to be returned to the people, and she has only urged India. While she thanks India for the sanctuary provided, she thanks India for the patience and the restraint shown, she also urges India not to mix the utterances of the Yunus-led interim government and the radical elements who have been placed there to be the voice of the people of Bangladesh. She has said, please be patient with the people of Bangladesh. The people of Bangladesh have not forgotten Bharat. They do not have an animosity towards Bharat. They just need the chance. And she's only urged Bharat to continue to keep pressure on Yunus and this establishment to ensure that there are free and fair elections. Now, mind you, even as we speak, and Sheikh Hasina speaks with News18.com and the News 18 network, the Awami League stands banned. The Awami League stands banned in Bangladesh. But Sheikh Hasina has said that the Awami League has enough and more cadre on ground, enough and more support on ground to come back and stand up. And let's just say, just hours before we have put out this interview, the Awami League has started orchestrating protests on ground against the tyranny of the interim establishment and demanding a restoration of democracy and free and electoral process, giving the power back to the people. So there are various things that she has opened up on, but she does hold back on the role of Waqaruzzaman, because she said that there was a choice that needed to be made on saving thousands of lives and also the lives along with my near and dear ones, the staff. And the advice at that point was to leave the country at that moment for the safety of a lot of people. On the role of the Chinese and her equations with Beijing, she says China remains a partner in security and trade, and we would like to continue to engage with China on that levels. But she does call India a true friend. She does thank India profusely for not just providing her sanctuary, but also the patience and the restraint that Bharat has shown so far.
Absolutely. Also joining us on the broadcast right now is Deepak Vora, former diplomat. And he's joining us right now on CNN News 18. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's just talk about what she has claimed in this interview to CNN News 18 as well. The West, she claims, mistook Yunus's economic genius for democratic credibility. I just want to ask you if you think this somehow points to the West, even though she's absolved the United States of any sort of a predetermined role in this. Do you think this points to the West's tendency to impose selective morality on democracies outside of its sphere of influence?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Always a pleasure to be with you on your channel early in the morning. It's wonderful, and the pollution levels in Delhi are very high, so it's nice to talk about something else. The interview that she has done, she appears to be softening her stance towards the United States. This means that she sees the United States as a major player in Bangladesh in the years to come, in the election to come. Compared to her earlier statement, she now says that there was no reason to believe that the US government or other foreign powers were actively involved in what happened in Bangladesh. She has realized that being petulant and accusing the whole world of conspiring against her doesn't lead her anywhere. They will simply ignore her. So now she's trying to get back the relationship that she once had with the West and saying that, all right, you guys are okay, but my ouster was engineered by this scoundrel Mohammed Useless Khan, and he sponsors extremists. He's a terrible fellow. She's trying to give this message also to the Western countries that your issue today, the biggest challenge that you face, is Islamic terrorism. And she's done this interview soon after the Red Fort blast in Delhi, which has been universally condemned. She's trying to tell them that, look, this guy is fooling around with these people, and that could be a threat not just to you, but to your friends, to the whole world, in fact. She says he's a front man for extremists. He's not a symbol of democracy. So I believe that she has moderated her stance vis-a-vis the US. She's given a powerful message to the Western countries, and she has openly acknowledged that India has been standing by her. Ma'am, I think this is a statement of fact. We never let our friends down. This, again, is something, her endorsement of India's foreign policy is something that I appreciate very much. I've been to that country several times. That she understands that we are her true friends. We are Bangladesh's true friends. We don't wish them ill. That, I think, is a very powerful statement also.
Ambassador Deepak Voraji, good morning. This is Anand Narasimhan here. We need a wise and seasoned diplomat to read between the lines and to break it down for us. But thank you very much for doing that and bringing in that very interesting perspective. So she is trying to be a little more circumspect rather than being petulant, you say. But she's also praised the Trump administration. But she knows that there is a cost to it. The Americans want the St. Martin Islands, and that was the reason. That was the reason why this entire orchestration of the ouster happened. But how do we see things moving from here, flowing from here? She also calls Beijing a very active partner in Bangladesh's trade and security, while she maintains that Bharat is the most trusted friend. So what is it that she's trying to do here?
Well, thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure to learn from you. I appreciate what you say. Your own perspective is always brilliant, as of your colleague. She has understood that you can't mess around with the United States. The US enemy, who is their enemy number one? It's not Bharat, sir. It's not Russia. Enemy number one is China. Whatever Trump says, he changes his mind every day. And he's now beholden to Beijing for the rare earths, etc. Whatever. The rare earths, by the way, are not so rare. So many countries have them. But it will take centuries to actually bring them to a commercially exploitable level. So what she is trying to do is tell them that, look, all right, whatever has happened, and bygones be bygones. Make sure that the elections scheduled for February 2026 are free and fair, and don't get involved in them, because my party, the Awami League, is likely to do well in those elections. This is my understanding. As far as China is concerned, she understands that she can't live in a pond and fight with the crocodile over there, which in this case is China. Now, about China's relationship, she says good security and good trade, which is actually being somewhat disingenuous, because China doesn't provide security over there at all. China, in fact, itself is being beaten up by all these characters in Bangladesh, all the investments that it has got. There is the issue of whatever support the Uyghurs are getting, etc., etc. So that's being somewhat polite, but not totally honest about the role of China. China is on the decline in Bangladesh as it is in Myanmar and in Nepal. But she's yet saying that, look, I don't want you guys to get angry with me and help me to come back. And as far as St. Martin Island is concerned, so I'm not even sure that the Americans are interested in it any longer because there are other priorities. But if they are, then I have no doubt in my mind that she'll come to an agreement with them and say, all right, my sovereignty, because part of it is also owned by Myanmar. Myanmar regime is, of course, now looking to the United States for survival. She'll say, all right, both of us will lease it to you. This is my understanding. I've seen this in 52 years in diplomacy. We'll lease it to you for 39 years or whatever. After that, we'll take our sovereignty. The fiction of my sovereignty is maintained, but in reality, you manage the place.
But Ambassador, one more question. She doesn't name the JMB or the BNP, but she names the Hizb ut-Tahrir. What is that signaling?
That is signaling that Bangladesh, the Bengali, sir, is a Bengali first. He's then a Bangladeshi, and he's then a Muslim. I don't see Islamic extremism surviving very long in Bangladesh. So the message that she is giving over there is that these characters are very dangerous, not just for my country, but for the whole world. The world should combine to oust them. And if Yunus has to go back to becoming Hillary Clinton's cook or washerman or whatever he was, well, let him go there. My own feeling is, sir, that he will flee before the elections take place because he's not going to get immunity. He's not going to be one of those like in Muniristan, not Muniristan. What is that country called where Munir runs the show? So Muniristan has given this guy immunity for the next 5,000 years. Yunus understands that that's not going to happen in Bangladesh. Exactly as he was chasing Sheikh Hasina, it was a kind of witch hunt. There might be a witch hunt against him. So he would want to run away and settle down somewhere else.
Right. Ambassador Vora, if I could just come in here, and of course she's called for free and inclusive elections as well. Just looking at how things are playing out right now, do you think Bangladesh risks becoming another case study of the strongman versus savior cycle that many democracies may seem susceptible to?
I have a feeling that the Bangladesh army, with the particular present army chief, will make sure, absolutely make sure that the elections are free and fair. Why hasn't the military taken over so far? They could have done it. There were calls for it. There were, internationally also, there were muted voices saying, "Bhai, sambhalo us jagah ko, go and take over and beat all these chaps who are creating trouble." I believe they'll ensure that there is a good election, as good in inverted commas, and that the party that comes to power is in place, forms a government, etc. They will try and contain the violence during the election. I don't see the military taking over because then Bangladesh in its present form will be totally isolated internationally. This is not the time for coups, ma'am, whatever Donald Trump says. This is the time where people claim that democracy is the best system that should be in a government. And so the military, I think Bangladesh's economy is in a mess. They need money, they need bailout, they don't have energy, they don't have food, they depend on India. I think the military is going to see that. Waqar Yunus has been making, Waqar al-Zaman making statement that India is a great friend, we like them, we love them, etc., etc. The idea is that please keep giving us whatever support you're giving us. The Adani group has sued them and said, give us this money, etc. Whatever the result, I think they're also softening their stance towards India.
All right. Ever since Yunus has come, of course, there's been this unmissable pivot away from India and its friendly relations that it had under Sheikh Hasina. That being said, do you think we're going to see a recalibration of Yunus's stance on that, or perhaps ties with China as well?
What is the option? The Chinese are not going to give him a dollar. He went there recently. There's even talking about that China-Bangladesh economic corridor. Ma'am, the CPEC, the China-Muniristan economic, not Muniristan, whatever, economic corridor is dead. Have no doubt about it. I mean, I'm familiar with what is happening. There not one project is generating any revenues. How long can you go on bailing out an economy that has fallen lower than the lowest level in international estimation? So I think that he understands, his advisors hopefully, including the military, have told him, look, China is here not because they love you. They don't love Islam. Look what they've done to the Uyghurs. They are there because they feel that you won't pivot towards the United States. You will be our friend. You won't allow the Americans to come to San Martin and build whatever they are planning to build over there. So I think that is his game. And the Chinese are trying to say this to him. But they have absolutely, ma'am, a lot of my friends, I've just come back from the United States, spoken to many, many experts. They say the Chinese do not love this character at all, nor do they love the extremist element in Bangladeshi politics. I'll just conclude this by saying, you remember there used to be a chap called Mullah Baradar or something like that from Afghanistan. And then they had called him over to Beijing and said, oh, the Taliban is a pivotal force and we'll engage with them. And you guys stopped supporting the ETIM, the Islamic movement of East Turkestan or whatever.
East Turkestan.
Right. Said, don't support them. You are a pivotal force, etc. So let's start on a fresh page. The Taliban fellows smiled and laughed and had good food, etc. and stayed in a good hotel. But thereafter, they haven't changed it at all. They're beating up the Chinese wherever they find them. Same, ditto with the TTP in Pakistan, ditto with the Baloch fellows. So therefore, the Chinese understand that all this nice talk about, oh, we love you, we don't interfere, etc., it's not taking them very far. It will not take them very far in Bangladesh.
Right.
So they will also be very careful, sir.
Right. Ambassador Deepak Vohra, always a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Good morning and thank you very much. Thank you. We'll also try and connect. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we'll also try and connect. Him is with us. Him, if you can just go through those passages which are on news18.com, the questions, especially her response to what she sings about the American influence and also the Chinese, what her equations with the Chinese are and how she looks at China. Two important answers which also then post what Ambassador Deepak Vohra said in perspective, that she is trying to be a little more circumspect in her approach while continuing to indicate that she will stay put in Bharat till the time things normalize in Bangladesh. And that's the other question, whether she will return to Bangladesh. She leaves it open. She says it's about the people, and as long as the people can decide and the people can vote fairly, that is my priority and that's what I want. Somewhere signaling that the Awami League would want to be, one, allowed to contest the elections as the Awami League, and two, full democratic freedom to go out and campaign in Bangladesh so that there is a free and fair election, hoping that the people will vote her back and open up her passage to come back. Her biggest question, and I think the first answer itself, she says, the moment Muhammad Yunus, as soon as he became interim advisor, he stopped all the inquiries against the actual perpetrators of the Bangladesh uprising and said the judicial inquiry will be terminated. That was proof that there were radical elements and Yunus has been propped up by them. And that's where it all starts. And she says that's what is the critical part there. Why did you stop a judicial inquiry there if your head is above water and your intentions are above board?
Right, let me just quote here, and if I could just show to our viewers as well. Of course, the full scale, this is what she's saying, of course, the full scale of the conspiracy only became clear much later, and that was when Yunus granted immunity to all the perpetrators of last summer's violence and dissolved the inquiry that we had set up to investigate the cause. It was obvious that a plan had been devised to overthrow my government. That's what she's saying. And at the time, leaving was a matter of survival. And this is a very important statement that she made. Leaving was a matter of survival. I did not want to leave Bangladesh, but it was made clear to me that remaining would not only have put my life in danger, but also the lives of those around me. But that's what she said when Yunus granted immunity to all the perpetrators of last summer's violence and dissolved the inquiry. Now, she's also said that these, of course, as we all know, and we've been tracking this as well, started as peaceful protests and had transformed into a state of lawlessness which was led by a violent mob of radical agitators. Now, the second point that she's made is that the military here was faced with an impossible situation, defending a constitutional government against overwhelming mob violence while also avoiding any further loss of life. Our discussions focused on preventing a complete breakdown in law and order and ensuring the safety of my family and staff and of the ordinary civilians on the streets of Dhaka. Whether or what kind of external pressure influenced decisions, I cannot say. Now, these are some of the big statements that she's made. You can, of course, go through this entire interview on CNN News 18. And with that, Anand, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective and your insights on this as well. And we're going to slip into a short break. Don't go anywhere. Lots to track on the other side. Tune back in.